Hi guys, welcome to R Tutorials. This is the next lesson. Today we're going to look at R variables and then we're going to go over data types. So, creating variables in R is unique to any other program language that you'll ever experience. They use an assignment with a little arrow, and I'll show you how to do that now. So let's create the variable name. We'll call it variable 1, and then to assign the variable a name, use a bracket, left bracket, and a hyphen, which is like kind of an arrow pointing to variable 1. Then you add what expression you would want to then be contained in memory. So let's say 22, and let's create another variable and have that as 42. So when I run these two lines, I'm going to select both lines and click run. These have now been saved into my environment, and we know that variable 1, if I can just expand that out, is now 22 and variable 2 is 42. To actually print them back out to the console, because these have now been saved in memory, I use the print command. So I'm going to go variable, and as you can see, it's got kind of a version of IntelliSense for those that are familiar with Microsoft programming languages. So yeah, then I'll click run on that and see what the result is of that. So I know that actually I've assigned the value of 22 to variable 1 and the value of 42 to variable 2. So now I've got those variables in memory, I can do some interesting functions. I could perform the square roots, and I could say I want variable 1 times variable 2, which is going to be 22 times 42, and it will take the square root of both those numbers. So it's about 30.4. So yeah, the square root has then been saved. Okay, so essentially, if we remember that this is how we assign variables, so this is how we assign variables. Okay, you get used to writing that. Print is to return the value the console, so it returns the value back to the console. And then we've used an inbuilt R function to return the square root of var1 times var2 for shorthand. So that's essentially how you assign variables. So now we'll go on to looking at data types. So the data types that are contained in R are decimals, so floating point values. That means there's more than one decimal, there's a decimal place within the number. So that's 2.5, so I'm going to store the value of decimal 2.5 in a variable called decimal. So I'm going to print out decimal to see what decimal is. There we go. I'm going to run those two lines, and it's come back as 2.5. So now R knows that this data type is a floating point value. You can check the class by using the class function. So if I've run that line of the decimal value I've just created, it will say that it is numeric. Indeed it is numeric, but it's actually a floating point value. The same can be said for integer values. Integer, my integer, shall we call it? Let's make them a bit more specific to us. Let's say 10, and then let's print my integer. Okay. So yeah, it knows it's 10. If I take the class of that, class of my integer, it's again numeric. Okay, so let's move on to non-numeric data types. This time we're going to look at Boolean, so we'll have bool true, and we'll set that to true, and bool false, and we'll set that variable to false. So then we'll print bool true, and we'll look at the class as well for bool true. So I'm going to run all those 4 lines of code. As you can see, this is different now. It's returned a logical value. So this is now logical compared to previously it was numeric. The next example, I'll use string values. So this time we're going to say, we're going to call the variables character variable 1, so char1. We're going to use that as the common example, hello, and we're going to have char2 as world. So they will then save in my environment once I run that line. As you can see, these 2 have been added now. So we know that they're actually in memory. When you see it in the environment, it's in memory. We'll get onto data frames later, but yeah, you can view those in the environment window as well. So we'll go, wrong line. We'll now do something called the print command, which we've been doing previously, but we're going to use the paste function. For those that you know about concatenation, this is going to concatenate both strings together. So I'm going to pass char1, and then I'm going to do a comma to then add the second expression. I could keep going with as many commas as I want and expressions after them, but in this example we've only got 2 characters. So if I run that, I should get a nice string formatted as hello world on 1 line, like that. So that's basically taking the values of both of those and putting them on 1 line. And then we can check the class of char1, and that'll come back as a character value. So these are the main data types that you'll be using in R. There are some other data types such as complex numbers and scientific, but for now this will suffice for the sake of example. Okay guys, catch me next time. Next time we'll be discussing a way to actually store multiple values in memory using something called vectors, which are analogous and similar to Excel cells and rows, so cells of columns of values and rows of values. So they're also similar to arrays. Okay, so join me next time guys, and please subscribe.